Hello everyone, in this video I want to dive in deeper into understanding the capabilities of the DualSense controller for the PlayStation 5. Now, I haven't read too much about it before, so I've decided yesterday and today to read more about it and to understand really the capabilities of this controller. So if you haven't heard a lot about this controller, well, we're gonna dive in and we're gonna talk about it quite a lot. Now, I always find this type of vibration to really kind of help enhance the gameplay, give kind of a more tactile feeling to game, get you kind of more feel the game rather than just see the game. And of course it was in the PlayStation 4 with the DualShock, it was really nice to have this feature. Now today I'm enjoying this one on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, which has the HD Rumble feature. This one developed by Immersion Corporation. This feels really cool. Different type of games, they play with it differently. For example, in Animal Crossing, when I'm fishing, I really kind of feel like I'm capturing a fish, you know, where I can really kind of fishing, you know, the resistance when actually I capture a fish. It depends on the size of the fish, the rumble differs. Now, the DualSense, of course, has a more advanced haptic feedback feature, which is also programmable. These voice call actuators are actually located in both the left and right side of the controller in the grips. And the cool thing about these actuators, they can simulate different type of textures and have you feel kind of different type of resistance. Now, PlayStation on their blog, when they talk about haptic feedback, they mention, and I'm quote, feel physically responsive feedback to your in-game actions with dual actuators, which replace traditional rumble motors, which were on the DualShock 4. In your hand, this dynamic vibration can simulate the feeling of everything from environments to the recoil of different weapons. Now, the adaptive triggers are the ones who can actually feel the level of force and tension. And also on the PlayStation blog, they mentioned 4 adaptive triggers experience varying levels of force and tension as you interact with your in-game gear and environment, from pulling back increasingly tight drawstring to hitting the brakes on a speeding car. Feel physically connected to your on-screen actions. So what this means is that developers can program these adaptive triggers so they can actually give you simulate different type of resistance. For example, they mention when you're shooting, for example, with a bow and arrow, right? When you pull the string of the bow, there's kind of resistance. So for example, the developer can create something that you really kind of need to pull the trigger, and the further you pull, the harder the resistance, or vice versa. Really, they can play with it the way they want because it's all programmable. So you can definitely imagine different guns in a first-person shooter, each one feeling different and unique. I mean, haptic-wise. Amazing, right? And the good thing is, because it's programmable, developers can really play it and really adapt it to different type of situation for the gameplay. It's programmable, of course, via API, so the developer can talk with the controller with the haptic feedback and with the adaptive triggers. Now, I'm going to quote something for Wired.com. On ice, a high-frequency response made the thumbsticks really feel like my character was gliding. Jumping into a pool, I got a sense of the resistance of the water. On a wooden bridge, a bouncy sensation. So as you can see here, what this means is that there are going to be different type of surfaces which your character is going to interact with during the game, and you're going to feel it differently. It depends on, for example, what your character are working on. For example, let's imagine a walking simulator, Death Stranding. So for example, in Death Stranding, when you stumble, there will be an option if you kind of feel like, you know, that feedback when you actually about to fall or falling down. Maybe you can even feel each item that fall on the ground. That means if you have 5 items that fall on the ground, you're going to feel these type of 5 vibrations. And because it's programmable, developers can assign this type of behaviors to different type of surfaces in the game. So you're really going to feel it like if you move from one type of surface to the other continuously. So imagine that you play, for example, a driving simulator game, right? Where you kind of have this haptic feedback kind of control, and the adaptive triggers control the tension of the wheel. You know, when you actually need to kind of move left and right and control the car, and also when you move on to different surfaces. So it depends on the road. Somewhere we're going to be bumpy and you're going to feel it because the control will kind of vibrate in a way that you're going to feel the bumps. And also when you get a sharp turn, you're probably going to feel the resistance again. And you're also going to feel the car when it drives on different surfaces, like maybe it's rainy on the surface, you're going to feel kind of the resistance differently, or maybe it's mud, etc. All right, so again, we have the pressure sensitive buttons, and we have the haptic feedback technology that creates kind of a sense of touch using different vibrations. But although haptic feedback is kind of word that you can find in many other controllers, you need to understand that this one uses voice call actuators, which actually is the same technology that used in speakers, right? So they vibrate to produce sound. So they are very accurate, and because they are very accurate, that allows the controller to produce very precise movements. And although we have those new voice call models, it doesn't mean that the previous models that use in the DualShock 4 controller were completely abandoned, maybe used together. We don't know this just yet. What we do know is that we're going to get a system, a haptic feedback system that is advanced one, that allows to produce very kind of strong vibrations to very kind of a tiny, more textures one. So you can actually feel it kind of rotate probably in very high frequency or low frequency, depends on what the developer want, and produce different type of results. But of course, we're going to feel everything. Everything is going to be very tactile and be connected to what we see on the screen. Now we need to understand that the developer need to decide to use it. This is programmable, so you might play some games that don't use it at all. Maybe it's obvious, but I'm just mentioning this. All right, so let's move on to the other features. Well, one thing that the DualSense Wireless Controller has is a built-in microphone, which means that you're able to, instead of using the microphone on your headset, or if you don't have a microphone on your headset, you can use the controller instead, because there's a built-in microphone. And you also have a mute button just in case you want to mute yourself so nobody can hear you during gameplay. Now the DualSense controller comes with a USB Type-C port. So again, this is you see this becomes a standard already, and we can see this one is also on the Nintendo Switch, and it's also in the Xbox Series X controller. So everybody's now moving to USB Type-C. By the way, one of the advantages of the USB Type-C is you don't need to rotate the connector in order to fit to a certain socket. It doesn't matter if it's up or down, it works the same way. Now, from what I know, this is not an official information, but we are talking a battery of 1560 milliampere. But it doesn't mean that, by the way, the DualShock had a 1000 milliampere battery. But just so you know, it doesn't mean that we're going to get much longer battery life, because we have technologies here that probably consume more power. So maybe we're going to see even more or less the same as the DualShock, maybe slightly more. But we need to understand that it's not like we're going to have the same, it's not like the controller has the same power consumption than the previous DualShock 4 controller. So again, we need to see how the battery life will be. Right now we don't know, but we can expect it to be maybe the same or even more. Now, like the previous DualShock 4 controller, the DualSense Wireless Controller also comes with a headset jack. This means that you can actually connect a headset to the 3.5 millimeter jack, very easily, and you can, because it's wireless controller, you can just sit on the couch and just, instead of connecting something to the console, you can just connect a headset to the controller itself. So again, very comfortable. Now, if your your headset does have a built-in microphone, this one, of course, will be recognized, and you'll be able to speak through the microphone of your headset. And from what I understand, the mute button should work as well for your headset, by just filtering out any sound that carries over through the controller to the console. So if you're using a headset and you want to mute yourself, if you don't have a mute button on your headset, you can use the mute button on the controller to mute the sound. Now, the other thing is that the controller itself is also an integrated speaker. So you can actually kind of feel sound effects bursting from the controller. But this is for probably selected games, and this is probably programmable by the developer. We also has a built-in battery that we know, of course, and it's chargeable through the USB Type-C, as I mentioned. And of course, it also inherits the DualShock 4 motion sensors. So you can rotate the control, there's a gyroscope inside, and accelerometer, so the controller actually submit to the console and to the game, and developers can detect the motion of the controller and create different interactions in the game. Again, this depends on the game and of course how the developer want to use that feature, if at all, in their game. Now if you look at the design of the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller versus the DualShock, we can see that the controller is bigger. Now I have to tell you from my experience, yeah, I'm a PlayStation 4 player and I play years like playing on the PlayStation 4. So the controller itself, the DualShock controller, is good, but not great. Definitely after some time I felt that for me, and by the way I have a large hands, just keep this in mind, that it wasn't comfortable for a long duration of play. Sometimes I just felt that, it's just not it. And if I compared it to the Xbox controller, which I owned, and later on I sold it with the console, it was much more comfortable. I still want to, by the way, buy the Xbox controller just to be able to play with the controller in some games on the PC. So again, it's great seeing that Sony have decided to actually change the form factor of the controller, and now it's actually look like it more matches the Xbox controller. And just going with the iconic design of the previous one, they kind of made a substantial change to the ergonomics and design of the controller, which I think will make the PlayStation 5 controller much more comfortable to hold for a long period of time. I think one of the problems for me was actually the hands that goes at the bottom, which I felt like I want them to be kind of a bit straight. I don't want them to kind of fold in. Talking about the three fingers, just holding at the bottom. And I just felt that with the Xbox, I don't need to force them to hold the sides of the controller. I just can let them be kind of in a natural position. And I think this is a big, something really important, especially if you have big hands. And I think that with this controller, the problem will be solved, finally. Alright, other things new with this controller. Alright, there's a create button, by the way, that replaces the share button. So now it's called create. We can use it, of course, to create different content very easily by just touching this button. Of course, we use it in the PlayStation 4, in the DualShock 4 controller to capture screenshots and to capture gameplay. And I definitely see this also available and enhanced even on the next-gen console. Now, in terms of the touchpad, the touchpad has kind of a different design. It looks like bigger with a kind of an angular, and really fits the design of the kind of the controller compared to the the DualShock 4, which just look like, I don't know, like squarish. It doesn't look like it fits there, and really it's kind of a more streamlined design. And you can also see that the light bars are now on both sides of the touchpad, which looks really, really nice. Now, speaking about ergonomics, I forgot to mention that the controller also have kind of a textured grip underneath the controller. And again, this is something really important because I really didn't like the smooth design of the DualShock 4 controller. Like sometimes when you play a lot, you kind of feel like a bit sweaty and it's kind of slippery. So I hope this one also will make the texture design will actually help you like hold the controller firmly, even if your hands are a bit sweaty. Alright, what else? Well, in terms of colors, we don't know what colors will be available, but what we know that we have here is kind of a combination of white and black, and to be honest, it looks nice, right? But I personally don't like white. I don't know why, I just don't like white. I prefer like something like darker, or color, but going with white, yeah, too clean for me. But again, this is personal preference, but I do believe that Sony will release this controller in different colors. Maybe gonna hear it pretty soon before launch. We'll wait and see. Oh, by the way, the PlayStation button, remember this one? This one now is still there between the two analog sticks. But now, instead of just being like a button, it's actually shaped like the PlayStation logo, which is nice. Again, it just made the controller just looks better overall, in my opinion. Now, in terms of the positioning of the buttons, I mean, when I just compare it side by side, I think it's just more or less kind of the same. Maybe it's slightly wider on the new controller in terms of the distance between the buttons on the right side. Not sure, by the way, but it seems like it maybe just a bit. But overall, kind of look the same. Maybe it'll be distance in height but I can't really see it from this type of angle with the images that I'm looking at. This is something we need to wait and see. I think this one should have been like feel like the same as the previous controller, but maybe they're going to be like a slight change there in terms of ergonomic to fit the new design of the controller. Now, the things that I'm excited the most, obviously, is the haptic feedback and adaptive controls, but also the speaker. So you can see actually how the speaker, alongside with the sounds coming from the game, from the console itself, we kind of play a role in overall to increase immersion in games. You can definitely see that Sony took this controller to a new level. So not just you have like a next generation console, you're going to have a controller which hosts advanced technologies that should enhance the gameplay experience. And even based on technologies that are inferior to what we can see here, well, assumably from what I read, I can definitely see this enhancing many games, definitely. I can't wait to try it in first-person shooters, to be honest. And maybe I just want to know how it would be playing with this controller, playing game like, for example, this Cyberpunk 2077, whether CD Projekt Red really kind of took this into consideration, and when you play the game on the PlayStation 5, I mean Cyberpunk 2077, of course, you're really going to feel it's going to program to really give you kind of enhanced feeling when shooting with different guns. So if you are a first-person shooter fan, imagine every gun with different settings for the adaptive triggers. Maybe you're going to shoot with some guns that just you need to pull more in order to shoot. And maybe they have different stages, so they shoot differently, right? They can even create guns because of the controller, so it actually have different type of mechanics, and this is actually programmed into the haptic feedback and adaptive controllers. This is just amazing if you think about it. And imagine with different kind of sound effects coming from the speaker, this really you're gonna feel difference between different weapons that you use. Again, this is something the developer need to program. But I definitely can see people just talking, oh my god, this gun really feels great, right? You can really feel the gun in your hand. And really something I'm looking forward to try out. Now, in this video, I won't jump into comparing the DualSense controller to the Xbox Series X, but you know, from when I read about the Xbox Series S controller, well, I get less excited. It's like Microsoft went here kind of in a more conservative way, and you know, compared to what Sony did, and definitely from first understanding about the features of the controller, which I'm going to compare in another video, I'm more excited about the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller than the Xbox Series X one. Now, what's your favorite feature in the new DualSense controller? Well, for me, I need to say something. Seeing how amazing this controller is really kind of tingles me, right? You ask myself whether the controller will affect your buying decision. Well, I don't think that this will be something that people like put in the, you know, on the top of the list, right? The controller won't be the decision maker, but I don't know, maybe for some. But definitely controller gives the PlayStation 5 extra points, and I really like what I've read so far. Of course, I need to try it in hand in order to really understand how the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback really affect gameplay. But based on my experience from previous controller, from what I've seen, even less advanced technologies, I can definitely think that this will be very important for some games and really gonna help immerse the experience. If you have anything to add, if you have comments, if you have any remarks, if you know anything that is kind of bad about this controller, let me know in the comment section below. If you have things that you're worried about, well, let's discuss this controller, the DualSense controller, in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Consider subscribing to my channel and giving a like, and I see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.